Well, hello everybody. This is David Vos, and this is Free America Radio. I hope you're having a wonderful day because it's a really beautiful day. And here in Oklahoma, it's still a little cloudy. The sun's popping out here and there. It's really gotten warm. Like last night was 70, 73 or something. It was like really swelteringly hot after being, so cold a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, it's beautiful, beautiful day. I hope you're having a wonderful day. Oh my goodness, friends, have we got some information. Now, of course, don't worry, we're still going to be doing that series on the ruins of the natives here in America and going out and exploring these archaeological areas and pyramids and caves and all this wonderful stuff. We're going to get to that. I got to wait till Monday. I got to get my truck registered. But, we have a lot of things we have to cover. There's still some other unfinished business as well. Besides that I want to talk to you about because, we just went through an election and a lot of stuff's going on and people are wondering what is going on because it's really difficult to figure out. And of course, I'll be careful what I say in this video today. But I do want to show you a clip right here. And I'm just going to go ahead and show you this. I've got several clips that I want to show you. And I'm not going to say that much about it because the evidence speaks for itself. You can just hear what these fellers have to say. And, because, we're not really allowed to talk too much about all this stuff. But of course, we can definitely just look at the information. I don't suppose they would mind if we did that. So look at this clip here.
I made a bet with a high school friend of mine, his name is Stan, that Trump would win the presidency. Bottle of wine. I guess I need to pay up that bet because President Biden is there, isn't he? He is the one, and we have to come to grips with that. We want to hear it from you, General Flynn.
Depends on define. Yeah, well, here's what I would say. I'd say hold that bottle of wine. Hold on to that bottle of wine. I would not concede that bottle of wine. That's Mike Flynn.
Okay.
I would not concede that bottle of wine.
Oh, okay. So General Flynn, Trump's very close advisor, top advisor, is being asked, and this is recent, they ask him, well, okay, everybody's saying, what's going on? You were telling us that everything was going to be fine. And we're still waiting because we're into March now. Can you give us any information there, Mr. Flynn, the advisor to the president? Please tell us something. What's going on? I made a bet and it looks like I lost. General Flynn says, nah, I wouldn't give up that bottle of wine. Because he says, that bet that you made is still good. You won that bet. I'd keep that bottle. That's your bottle. Well, that's a very strange thing to say coming from Donald Trump's most closest advisor, a man that was persecuted by the shadow government for quite a while, wrongfully convicted of doing something he did not do because the government, the shadow secret mafia government, was trying to bring down the president in a coup. And of course, it wasn't just the president they were trying to bring down. It was the white hats. It was this group of individuals that are trying to take out the swamp. Okay? Now, I'm not going to put any interpretation into that. You heard what Flynn said. You can either think he's a liar or you can think he's delusional, right? One of the top generals in the country. Or you can think whatever you'd like. I'm just going to present this information to all of you, and you're all welcome to watch and make your own judgments on that. But I do have another question. It's just a little short question before we move on. Does that look like Air Force One to you? President Joe Biden, First Lady Jill Biden arrive on Air Force One in Wilmington, Delaware. Friends, that's not Air Force One. In fact, Air Force One is a specific craft that Donald Trump used for 4 years and that 4 or 5 presidents preceding him used. It has ballistic proof glass. That thing is ballistic missile proof. It has a button directly to the Pentagon. There are 3 or 4 of them flying in the sky at any one time in some sort of pattern that the enemy can't decide which is the real one, which is the decoy. While it's going in flight, they have the entire, Marines or the Air Force following, depending on if it's Marine One or Air Force One. They protect the president. It's the greatest military in the world. That man's got to be protected at all costs. And it has to be the best protection that the world has to offer because it's the president. And we have a particular craft for that job. It's called Air Force One. Sometimes they use Marine Force One. And they're both like that. They're both the best you can have, and they're for that reason. And all the presidents use them. But you see, on the day that Biden supposedly was, put into office, Trump got on Air Force One and took off. Air Force One didn't come and pick up Biden. It came and picked up President Trump. It did not pick up Biden. Biden came in on his own private jet. And to this day, Biden still is not in Air Force One. And yet they're running around claiming this crazy airline jet thing, whatever the heck it is. And now that's Air Force One. That's not got the kind of security that a president would need. Well, of course, Biden doesn't need security because he's the elite. They've got the power of the entire world sewn up in every office and every position of authority. And they run everybody's military worldwide. So there ain't nobody after Biden because that's their puppet. So he ain't worried. But you and I ought to be worried a little bit because we need to know what's going on. That is very strange, is it not? It really makes you wonder if when Trump said there would be a smooth transition to power, whether he was talking about perhaps a smooth transition to military power, perhaps. Maybe that's what he meant. And he wasn't really talking about a smooth transition over to Biden power or in the Biden administration. Perhaps it's a military administration that is being put into place. In fact, watch this little clip.
With a peaceful transition of military power. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. Thank you for that.
With a peaceful transition of military power.
Well, that would be interesting if that were true. Take a look at this particular ship here. This is U.S. Air Force. And you notice there's a number there. It says 0045. That's Trump. Trump was number 45. Look at what they painted on that airplane. It says global reach, nowhere to hide. Now, that's interesting because I'm being told, and of course we're not going to have a clip for this, but the talk is that when Donald Trump, right at the last week of his supposed presidency, they did have plans. He did all the stuff he needed to do, put his business in order. He put the CIA, he defunded that. He got rid of the FBI chief and he, got rid of the DOJ, basically fired William Barr. He signed several executive orders that put it into place, the plans that they had. Anyway, he had all this going, Insurrection Act and so forth. And then all of a sudden, China threatened Donald Trump with 2 things. They threatened, well, it's not really China, it's the powers that be that are using China now as their platform, because they make all of this pharmaceuticals there and all the gadgets and gadgets and the glitter for the Amazons and the Walmarts of the world. And these people that run the world, they want their money. So, and of course they sell, technology that can control you from those locations. So those are their distribution centers for their means to take over the world. It's their little lines that are strung out all over the world that plug into certain places that they have to have those things plugged in to get their infrastructure all over the world. They can control all the minds and all the bodies around the world. And they just can't have anybody, upsetting their control. So I'm told China, or the people, like I say, in the shadow government, the powers that be informed Donald Trump and the military that if they did that, there will be World War III. And that they were going to get rid of, our president and switch him with a clone. They said they could do that and they would do that. Well, at that point, what I'm told is Donald Trump got out of there with Air Force One because it was the only way to protect him. He went to Mar-a-Lago and they immediately, which is, remember, that was the Winter White House. That used to be the Winter White House. It's always been known as that. So it's always been kind of one of the White Houses. And so he got in the Air Force One to be protected. There are bunkers and, underground ballistic missile bunkers down underneath Mar-a-Lago. So Trump can be protected either there or, of course, at the White House or at the Pentagon. There's certain places where Trump is safe. Well, Mar-a-Lago hadn't been updated and reinforced for a long time. That was done way back when with JFK. That was, the Kennedys owned that. So Donald Trump bought that in advance for a reason. And he started updating it and cleaning it up and making it into this particular home away from home, like a house for a very important man, like a White House, like or an office for where he could, carry out all of his administrative duties. But as soon as he took off in Air Force One, which was protecting him, the outgoing guy, right? The military is protecting the outgoing guy. He was seen taking the nuclear football, which is the control to the nuclear arsenal, with him. You don't do that. You leave it with the other guy. That guy just got inaugurated, but on Inauguration Day, he takes it with him to Florida, to Mar-a-Lago. And they put bulletproof windows, not bullet, but missile-proof bullets. There's an attempt on his life. He never gives up the football. How could that be? How is it possible? If Biden really is installed there as we are being told, how is it possible that the entire corporation, a 10 square mile corporation called Washington, D.C., that's not even part of the United States, but it's a corporate office, and it's a foreign company that's got control of our government. I mean, in that area of 10 square miles is the Supreme Court, the Federal Reserve, which is not federal. It's a foreign power. These federal people aren't the United States. That's a different thing. We're not federal. Okay, we're just a community of states united simply in the fact that we want our freedom, and we made a constitution that does not allow them to make laws to take away our freedom. So we're free people, and we have a government for and by the people. And everything that this whole Washington, D.C. thing got started in 1871. It was not started way back in 1776. And so that's a whole different deal, and they drew up a different constitution. It's written with capital letters, and it's got slightly different language. And they changed around a couple of the Bill of Rights and made up a couple more. And they sort of got one that's just disappeared, and they enslaved everybody. We won't go into that in this particular video. But we've already talked about the seal that George Washington used is now being used by Donald Trump, which, according to the law, that's illegal unless you're still the president. And it's basically, because he's using that seal, it's a legal declaration that he's carrying on the original American Constitution. That's what it's saying. That's what we just talked about that yesterday. These symbols mean something. They don't just throw them around. You know, Britain and certain countries, they have these symbolisms on their emblems and their banners and their flags. And they're put there for a reason. The eagle is on our seal, a great seal of America, because that symbol stands for something. So, there's a lot of stuff that's gone on. We won't go into all of it. Before all this happened, remember, Trump was giving a speech and there was behind him a different seal that somebody threw up in the back. And it's not the original seal, but it had two heads. Well, that seal, unbeknownst to Trump, that seal was flashed behind him, but it's a Holy Roman Empire seal. You know, Germany, you know, Nazi, basically. They used the same eagle, the two-headed eagle. It had also been used by Constantinople in the past and so forth. But that goes all the way back to the Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire and the Germanic Third Reich. So Trump was so upset when they did that he fired whoever did it. But nobody ever knew what was going on. Well, at that very same time, like a few days later, the seal that Trump was using as the 45th president was missing. And it was gone for a long time. And now all of a sudden Trump's got a new seal, and it's the one that George Washington used, the Dorset seal. And he's down there in the Kennedy, he buys the Kennedy Winter White House, and he sets up shop there and puts bulletproof. It's got he did, you know, fixed up the bunkers and all of that stuff and made it a worthy White House. A place to do his business. And, but here's the deal. In order for this to be true, what we're saying, what we're implying here, if it's true, there has to be not only evidence that it's happening, we're going to have to find out that it's actually happening. We can't just pretend, right? I mean, we have to see evidence that it's actually happening. We have to know why before we actually see that it's happening, just to get you guys to think that there's a possibility for you guys to even entertain this theory. You probably would want to know, well, why would this be true? Like, you're saying something's true, we don't know if it's true. Why would it even be possible? Why? This never happened before, Dave. We all watched it. Biden was inaugurated. Trump went to Mar-a-Lago. Here's why. And this is from Milley, the Secretary of Defense that Trump put in. He is a loyalist to Trump. Listen to what he says.
We are unique among militaries. We do not take an oath to a king or a queen, a tyrant or a dictator. We do not take an oath to an individual. No, we do not take an oath to a country, a tribe, or a religion. We take an oath to the Constitution. And every soldier that is represented in this museum, every sailor, airman, Marine, Coast Guard, each of us will protect and defend that document regardless of personal price.
All right, so this general that is in charge of the military and is a loyalist to Trump is saying, I don't care who you are. If you're not actually voted in and constitutionally the president, if you think if you're going to be a dictator, we won't go for that. Now, some of you might think, see, they're not going to go and back Trump. That would be like a dictator. No, that means that they're going to follow the law. A dictator is one who doesn't follow the law. And that's what Biden and his crew is doing. They did a coup. That's against the Constitution. Having those Dominion machines out there. We won't say anything more. All of this, the whole PANDEIMIC or whatever you want to call of this that's going on, that's not constitutional. And not only that, you have to ask yourself, okay, so you would expect that, of course. And Milley says, yeah, we're going to follow the Constitution. All right, that's what they're saying. And our eyes see that the guard is surrounding the Capitol and has been there and still there. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more because they're going to be there for, they say, at least a couple of months. They've been saying until the end of March or even longer, right? To the beginning of spring, or even sometimes they're saying beyond that. But they definitely said that they'll be there for 2 months, and we'll show you that. When I'm going to show you proof, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that that Trump put a law in place and that Congress knows about it. So does Pelosi and all the rest. Trump does have control of the military. And I'm going to show you proof of that. But before I do, I'm just going to ask you the question, because you're probably going to ask me before you even read it. You're probably thinking it. Like, come on, Dave. If this was really happening, don't you think they'd let us know? Well, let's refer to General Flynn. Would they let us know? Listen to Flynn.
In life, in business, and in wartime, goes to the competitor that does not flinch and does not broadcast his game plan.
So you see, he's saying they're not going to tell you their game plan. This is a war. Lieutenant General McInerney said we're in World War III. You see, when you're in war, you don't broadcast the strategy. Look at this. Here's what somebody posted after seeing the Air Force One, the new Air Force One, right? Which is not really Air Force One. I'll tell you how. No plane that Biden has traveled on since before the inauguration has carried the CAL sign, Air Force One sign. While that plane is a presidential plane, if it doesn't carry the AFI or AF1, the emblem, the CAL sign, then what in the world is going on? I saw my own eyes his flight leaving to and from Houston last weekend, and neither time did it carry the Air Force One sign on it. Friends, what do you think about that? Why is the corporate Washington, D.C. fenced off with the barbed wire on the inside with troops who have been sworn in as marshals? Thousands of troops. Why are they there? And why is Biden signing executive orders in some Castle Rock movie studio in California? Well, of course he's not going to be in Washington. It's surrounded with military. How would you got to go through metal detectors just to go in through the door and stuff. And remember, Pelosi passed a law that says everybody, nobody gets a free pass. Everybody that goes to the Capitol has to be patted down and go through all this stuff and the security and so forth. Well, guys, let me show you a little piece of information here. Let me show you the proof. Take a look at this. Presidential Transition Enhancement Act of 2019. According to this legislation, which was passed by Congress, President Trump retains control of the military until 60 days after the inauguration of the new president. The full transition of power does not occur until March, which reflects what is actually written in the United States Constitution. Meaning right now, Biden does not have command of the military. Patriots are in control, and this proves it. Okay. Well, is it true? Let's go to the government website. Oh, well, there's the law that was signed in, and here's what it says. The bill would clarify the responsibility of the General Services Administration during the transition by requiring a memorandum of understanding between the agency and the presidential transition. The act would allow GSA to provide transition services for up to 60 days after the inauguration. This provision would also help ensure smoother transitions than we have had in the past. So that's what the law says. Trump has the ability to exercise that control of the military for up to 60 days. And I believe that's what's happening, friends. There's probably no question. There is no other explanation. That is what's happening, because you just read it. There was a law that was passed through Congress before Trump left office that gave him, of course, that duty and responsibility. And along with, the on the ground that we see these troops standing there, there really isn't any explanation for thousands of troops to be surrounding the Capitol. There is no explanation. Of course, we know that the entire Capitol incident was orchestrated. Now we find out that one of the guys that they arrested in the Capitol, that went into the Capitol seat area, Congress area, he was arrested and they let him go. Well, he knows Pelosi and he is the head of Antifa. And they've got film and proof that he organized the entire thing and he was being let in by certain police that were there at the time. And anyway, I can't go into that. We can't talk about that too much. But you guys can look that information up. But the point is that nothing we see is real. All right? They're not going to let us know the game plan on Trump's side because they can't. Because they can't let the enemy know. And the bad guys don't want you to know what trouble they're in or what they're not in. They want you to be afraid. They want you to give you the impression they have it all under control. And they probably think they do. Well, they might have thought that 4 years ago, but they've been battling the administration of Donald J. Trump for a while, and they're getting pretty worried. They know about the law that was passed in Congress. I guarantee it. Trump is in control of the military for 60 days. That's the same amount of time that the troops are going to be around the Capitol. They got barbed wire on the inside of the fence so that you can't get in. Now, come on, if this was about riots, they'd have a fence that, you walk up to it and you can't just push right through. That's all you're worried about with riot control. Okay, but fences with barbed wire on the top is a prison type of situation, like Guantanamo Bay. You don't do that at the United States Capitol, the capital of America, the capital of the free world, is surrounded in barbed wire with thousands of military, loaded tanks with guns and bullets in the barrel. And everybody just acts like, hey, we don't know what's going on. Nobody's talking about it. Well, there's a lot going on. There is a lot going on. One of the things that's going on is that if Biden was in control of the military, then we know what his policies would be. Well, China is threatening Taiwan over the last couple of weeks. And our military went over there to protect Taiwan. Now, that wouldn't be happening if Biden was in charge. But the military is protecting Taiwan right now. So, that's something pretty odd. It just doesn't make sense. Some of the things that's going on with the military right now. Although, have you seen these guys? Look at these. There's military, people dressed up in military attire there at the Capitol, and they don't have any buttons or any badges. They don't have a tie. They don't have nothing. They're just very plain, and that is not the way the military dresses. That's completely new. That's not our military. So it looks like Biden doesn't have any military supporting him. He's got to go out and trump up his own. Get up, they got a lot of money. They can hire people. They can contract it out. And it looks like that's what they're doing, because the other day we saw pictures of certain police there at the Congress, and we didn't know who they were. And later on we heard that they had this, they named these more or less like guards to follow Pelosi and protect her, and Biden, and they named them Checkmate. It's almost as if there is a battle going on between two groups. One says, we got control of the military. And the other side says, checkmate, we built our own military, or whatever. I don't know. We don't need you, It's like checkmate. I don't know, but there's some kind of game going on. Definitely is. Because that's not our military. And there's a growing number of these people being seen walking around. Now, remember, the National Guard's there, and they were sworn in as marshals. And we know why they're there. There's only one reason that you swear individuals in as a marshal. It's because of martial law. You can't swear them in like that and surround the Capitol and put barbed wire up and not call it martial law. That's what it means. There are marshals there, and that's martial law. And you know what that means? Court martial. That's a military tribunal. Those are military police, my friends. So they were talking about sometime in March the military would leave. Now they're requesting an extension. Friends, there's just no explanation for any of the things that we're talking about other than the logical meaning of what all of this means. I mean, when you go out and you make a law in Congress that says that Trump's supposed to have authority over the military for 60 more days after Biden supposedly inaugurated, if that happens, and then you see all of the evidence that we're presenting here, there isn't any other thing you can come up with other than that's what's happening. It's just that we're not being told any of this on the Cartoon Network, CNN, or any of these other networks like Fox. So, anyway, here, though, is probably one of the strongest pieces of evidence. And when you see this, if you're like me, you may actually have to get a tissue, because it will warm your heart. It will bring hope to your heart. It will make you very happy. This picture might actually be worthy of perhaps printing it out as a real photocopy and, framing it in a glass frame and putting it on the wall, because this may be the most beautiful picture I've ever seen. But here is a picture of our dear president, and you'll notice that he's looking at a very big monitor. That's the military. He's in direct communication. That is Mar-a-Lago. Look at the flag behind his desk. And that flag has the gold fringe. You see there's the phone, direct line to the Pentagon. And it looks like he's having a sort of a Skype meeting or whatever with some very powerful people in the military there. This is at Mar-a-Lago. This is not at the White House. But there is something we have to point out. Yes, that's Donald Trump. That's our president. And he was actually president at the time, because this is not a recent picture. So whoever put this out was trying to fool you. And there are people on both sides that's just putting out propaganda. I actually probably think that the bad guys put out stuff to make the truthers look stupid. So they put a picture like this out. Or maybe somebody just mistakenly thought this was a recent picture. But it's an old picture when Donald Trump was president. It was actually during December. He was wishing the military a happy New Year and a good Christmas and so forth. So this is what Fox says to say about this particular incident. So you can see when this actually happened. I could put up a different, I could do it from Snopes or whatever. But here's Fox Business, where it shows you the picture of Trump at the Mar-a-Lago. It even says it was at the Mar-a-Lago. And it says that Trump's addressing the military in a video conference at the Mar-a-Lago. So there's the truth. Trump is not addressing the military from his new White House? I didn't say that. I'm saying that picture is when he was doing it, when he was officially the 45th president of the capital United States of America. But, so Snopes and these guys are saying, ha ha ha, see, this is, this is just conspiracy theories. But wait a minute. What gets lost in all of this, and I think this is what's happening, is we're all so confused because you've got truth being thrown all over the world and people mocking it like it's a lie. It's very confusing. And we've got lies being spun that people are, with a straight face, calling the truth. This is really getting confusing. But the truth is that there's, in all of this controlled debate, we miss the real central truth. That which is really important. And that is that Trump had been using Mar-a-Lago as a White House or a place to do his official presidential business for a long time. That nothing has really changed. Trump's still there doing our business, and he can reach the Pentagon from the Mar-a-Lago. He can conduct all the business that he needs to conduct on our behalf there at Mar-a-Lago. I'm telling you, we have two governments in this country right now. And both of them are kind of like a shadow government. I mean, we don't have a legitimate government. And over the next few weeks, we're going to see the battle go down. These two sides are going to be warring. Optics are everything. And they're trying to hide all of this that's going on, so we won't see it unless we look at the inconsistencies and realize what these inconsistencies are. They're exposing their lies. That something's happening behind the scenes. This isn't normal. And the only reason I'm pointing this out is because I think we need to be aware. I do not believe the United States Constitution will fall. That is not in prophecy. I do know that prophecy tells us that the Antichrist will rise and there will be a 7-year period, and that is the hour of her judgment. And I do believe there's a very good chance that that could start in spring. When does spring happen? Well, on March 21st, that is the vernal equinox. That is officially spring. That's the same time that Julius Caesar was, murdered. That's when Christ died on the cross and was resurrected. That is the Ides of March are upon us, friends. And Trump has been compared to Julius Caesar several times, and especially by those with any historical knowledge. And I myself have brought up these comparisons. I've also talked about the comparison that he has to Cyrus the Great. I am not the only one who has brought that comparison up. But something big is happening, and I do believe that we're going to see it all pan out right on that actual day. Now, that's our president. We voted him in. You know, the people spoke. And that's very important to the world, not just to me. It's important to you. It's important to everybody that our democracy works, our republic. And so it brings a lot of joy to see that man sitting behind a desk with a phone to the Pentagon, a place that he can do his business. But the spring equinox this year comes on March 20th. And, you know, that's like almost to the day. I heard that's when the troops are going to be there all the way, basically around March 20th. They're supposed to be leaving. Somewhere around that point. I have heard March 20th several times as a date that they're supposed to leave. But you see, that's the spring. Now, this is something that I had said, I don't know, a while back as well. But, you know, because several months ago, when we were going through this whole election thing, I was watching the president and I was thinking, why is he nervous? Like, he must have known they were going to try and cheat. Or, you know, he must have known all about whatever's going on. His investigators probably knew everything that was happening before it happened, you know. But he was so calm and he just let all this happen. And I was saying, you know, it almost looks like he has no intentions of even, like, he's not worried because he doesn't believe that there's going to be an election, or that he plans on handing the government over to somebody else or something. So this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that, as I've said, I believe that it's very possible the Antichrist could rise in spring. And that would have to be on the Passover, or right at or on the vernal equinox. That's when all of this stuff happens. And biblically, there are several prophetic events that are prophesied, that are typified by these holy days. Now, we're not going to go into that in this video, but if you go and start looking to some of the people online, it's kind of just trying to describe what each of these holidays mean. You know, some of the earlier things have already taken place. They're like the Passover represented Christ dying on the cross, and that was in the spring, and he already did that. But remember that Christ already told the Judeans, he says that when he comes in his own name, you'll receive him. But I've come in my Father's name, and you haven't received me. And he also said that you'll not see me henceforth until you say, blessed is he that comes in the name of the Lord. So Jesus was saying that somebody else is coming. You're going to receive him, but you didn't receive me. And then you're going to see me, because that's going to be a tough situation you're going to have to go through. And you're not going to be very happy, because that deity is a vengeful God, and he's not a good God, and he's not going to treat you right. And at the end of that period of time, you are going to be saying, blessed is he that cometh in the name of the Lord. In other words, I can't come and help you until you say you want me. Because every knee shall bow and every tongue confess. But you see, only because we willingly do so. He's not going to force anybody. So until the world repents of their sins and stops listening to the liar and the greed and the lust, and just receives the grace of the Lord and says, thank you, we have to go through this. This is what this is all about. We need to wake up. But most of you know, biblical prophecy says there will be a last and final 7-year period. That's it. And we're coming down to the countdown. And the angel raised his right hand and he swore by the one who made the heavens and the earth. And he says it will be no more time left. But when you catch sight of these things that I'm prophesying, then time will be no longer. That which was prophesied by the prophets shall take place. It will happen, and it will be unsealed, and people will begin to understand what's going on. And then you can count the numbers, and it shall be for times and a half a time. 1,260 days, no less and no more, until the finishing of these things. And so he swore it. And that's why those numbers are given in the Bible and in the book of Revelation, the 3.5 years, the 42 months, so that we could understand it will be only a short while. We could count the days. It won't last any longer, this great tribulation. And if whoever endures unto the end will be saved. That's all you got to do is have faith. And he says, not one hair of your head will be harmed. Not one hair of your head. However, if you get scared and you begin to beat your fellow servants, saying, oh, my master delayeth his coming, and you begin to act like the drunkards, the confirmed drunkards, and the gluttons. What is that? Those who are drinking the old covenant, they got the other covenant that they're drinking, that wine, the bad wine, that makes you violent and crazy, and you're gluttonous and riotous and carnivorous, that wild government beast that accuses everybody. It's a bondage and a curse. And anybody and everybody that's under it is under the wrath of that deity. And the only way to get out from under it is to be a Christian, because it says there is no condemnation in those who walk after Christ. So instead of the mark upon our forehead and our hand, which is what Deuteronomy and Exodus says is the law of Moses, we get the seal of the living God on our forehead, which is the Holy Spirit. And that's simply what's going on here. We have to make a decision. Will we be deceived and obey and show the sign of our obedience to the wild, crazy government who wants us to be their slave and worship them? But you see, we should not worship the material world or human laws or governments. We should worship only the divine being who is in us, through us, in all, above all, and through all. We are the temple of a living deity. And we shouldn't worship material things or the government or idols. We should worship in spirit and in truth, Jesus says. That's what the Antichrist message really is. They deny that the Christ is in the flesh. That this flesh is divine, because Christ was with God from the beginning. And we are in Christ from the beginning in the founding of the world. And Christ is in God. And we are one with the divine. And Jesus said, ye are gods, and the scripture cannot be broken. That is the message. But they deny that Christ in you. Christ in the flesh. And many of them, if not all of them, denied literal Jesus coming in the flesh. And it says there in the scriptures, they will even deny and disown the one who bought them. That, my friends, will be the great apostasy. They'll turn from the Jesus of grace to another gospel, according to the Apostle Paul, because Satan will transform himself into an angel of light. And he will say, oh, I'm all for keeping the law and being moral. But you see, that is not salvation. There is no salvation in anyone else or in the law. Christ nailed the law to the cross because it held us bound. And he set us free. And so if we reject our grace, our freedom, the Apostle Paul says it will not be good, because they didn't receive the love of the truth that they might be saved. So he sends the strong delusion. And that, my friends, is what's about to happen. And we have to wake up and understand. So there are two governments in the world. And I believe, as I said, that 7-year period will commence probably in a springtime scenario, because the last battle happens at Armageddon, which should be at the end of the year, around the September, October time, at the Feast of Tabernacles. That those holy days prophesy of the time of the end. The Passover is a prophecy of the coming of Christ, who dies and is resurrected. Well, Yahweh has his own plans of sending. Remember what Jesus said, when he comes in his own name. Yahweh says in Zechariah 14, he plans on coming his very self. And Isaiah says, I'm the only Savior. I don't recognize any other. I'm going to come and redeem them myself by murdering everybody that's on the earth. And that, by murdering all the nations, Yahweh says, I will redeem my people. You'll be washed in the blood of all that die. There will be a great sacrifice in Bozrah, and the blood shall rise to the horse's bridle, because the great wrathful day of wrath is coming, that everybody will pay, because he is the God of vengeance. But hey, by the way, have you noticed there hasn't been a State of the Union address? Now that's very peculiar. Especially when, again, something very strange, kind of like the troops around the Capitol and things like that. And nobody's explaining why these unusual things are happening. Biden's not on Air Force One, but Trump is? So here's what they say about this claim that, well, Biden is supposed to have done the State of the Union already, but he didn't, so therefore he's not, But if you go on the internet and you look up Snopes or something, this here is, I just copied this off. This is what Newsweek has to say about this. The ruling false. Here's what they say. Since the 1980s, presidents in the first year of their first term have given an address before a joint session of Congress, but it's not called a State of the Union address. So nanny. Okay. It's not called a state. We don't care what it's called. They have an address before the joint session of Congress. They've been doing that for a long time. Biden's not doing it. Why? So they say, well, there's no rule that it must be delivered in person or that it must be delivered on a certain date. Okay, but now we're halfway almost to the end of March. Nada. Friends, something's very strange. So I suspect that if there is a more likely time that we can expect this to start commencing would be in spring. And since all we've seen for the last year has convinced me that we are now gearing up for the countdown. Anyway, I think I'm going to go ahead and end it there today, and I probably will only leave this video up for a day or two. Guys, you can go over to my other account, either on, Odyssey and Library, LBRY. All my videos will be over there if you can't find them here. I'm David Vos. See you tomorrow. Have a good one.